Hi there, and welcome to the Sustainability Show. I'm your host, Blaise Hope, and joining me today is our contributing editor, Helen Adams. Helen, how are you?
Hello, Blaise. I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Great. So always exciting to have you here.
Thank
And we
you.
have an
That's a lot
amazing
of
show
plants
for you.
behind you.
I have lots of plants behind me. Thank you for noticing. You put the time into selecting them and having a sustainable workspace, as I like to call it, and
Yes.
as it is called. Anyway, on today's show, we will talk about the latest news as usual, and we will have two very special guests joining us. First, we have an interview I conducted with the Woman of the Hour, Chief Sustainability Officer of Vestas, and number one on our list of the top 100 women in sustainability, Lisa Ekstrand. I spoke to her last week. Then we will have live Dr. Toril Big, the Chief Carbon Officer of Tunnelly Engineering, which is decarbonizing the world of engineering, a fascinating discussion where business, science, and engineering meet to meet climate goals. But first, we must discuss our poll for this week. Our poll for today, and it's been running already if you've been looking on our LinkedIn, is based on the fact that sustainability jobs are booming. They can't fill them fast enough. So the question is, can outsiders transition well into sustainability roles? The answers being either no, you need sustainability experience, or yes, more diverse experience is better. Because, I mean, there are people who've devoted their lives to it, but there are also people who've devoted their lives to, for instance, engineering or supply chain, whose perspectives is going to be crucial to solve problems. But all the perspectives are crucial. So I'm very interested to see, forcing people to make a decision which way things break there. I wonder, I'm not sure whether it's going to break heavy or it'll be incredibly close. But either way, we're going to have a firm answer. That's the whole point of a yes-no question. Now, without further ado, let's start by taking a look at the latest sustainability news. And by the way, don't forget to post questions in our comments for Ask Blaise at the end and about anything that we discussed today, including for our guests. So, first news story we're going to look at is Sustera's Vincent Delamar brings tech to sustainability. I got to actually have a conversation with Vincent Delamar. It was a fascinating one indeed, bringing in platforms through which you can measure ESG across large companies and across small companies. The platform that they put together is pretty extraordinary. It's so user-friendly, and it inserts itself and makes visible data that you just wouldn't expect to normally be able to see, and does it in such a user-friendly manner. And it guides the fulfillment of ESG criteria by showing you what fits into what criteria and doing that for the actual company. So it's kind of transformative, because that first question that everybody asks is, well, how do we start? How do we have data, right? Let's pull in the data. Now, how do we separate it? How do we analyze it? Helen, I don't know if you got a chance to have a look at this, but there are a lot of platforms out there, but Sustera really stood out for me, hence why I decided to feature them today. Well, honestly, it was the ease of use. Most people who, when they come up with a platform, they tend to hesitate to show it to you for some reasons, usually because they need to embed it somehow or have an API installed for it to function or for you to be able to see it, or it just sort of looks. And to be fair, if you're dealing with things like supply chain, some of the systems are quite antiquated, so you want it to look antiquated and not look like it doesn't work. Theirs looks like a computer program, like a productivity workboard or even a CMS. It's just simple sections and clear data and very good visual analytics as well. Helen, I know that you had some questions about this too.
I did. So maybe I'm just really out of the sustainability loop, but I always struggle with the role of technology in sustainability. And I wonder, if we want to be lowering our carbon footprint, shouldn't we be using less technology?
Well, there's two sides of that, right? So first of all, there's your personal technology. You're talking about first, there's preventing e-waste, which is also important because we need to protect semiconductors for various geopolitical reasons. But also just e-waste, chip shortages, you want to be able to employ a circular economy in things. So what you want is longer life cycles. And so this goes for your laptop. You know, I get pretty much my entire home office I got from back market, because refurbished things from 2020 are really good. So there's no sense, and that does save, you know, that contributes to the circular economy. It's also cheaper, but long term, you want to be driving efficiency. So longer lifetime is just one sense of efficiency. Technology is going to allow us to lower our carbon footprint, because you're not going to ask people to go back to the Stone Age. That's not happening. We are going to maintain living standards and change them in a way that makes sense for the future, because it's now become clear to us that we're able to come up with solutions so rapidly for things, because of the technological revolution that we're in, that there's kind of no excuse for us just directing the focus and then sorting it out. You know, we are going to have carbon emissions until we find sources of energy that do not rely on them, and also that we are able to have a supply chain that doesn't emit loads of Scope 3 emissions. So it's a comprehensive effort, and technology is going to allow us to make that visible. So it's a question of where we're using technology, the efficiency with which we employ it, how efficient individual pieces of technology is, and also on top of all of that is consumer behavior. As a consumer, I can make decisions that are advantageous in terms of cost, but also in terms of environmental goals, and that's really where people are going. So, data centers use a lot of carbon, but we are going to need a mobile-first world, and so we're going to need more data centers. So they just need to be more efficient. So it's a question of balance, but it's the right question, Hannah.
Moving on about this for long term,
long term. Our next story is talking about almost a more traditional thing, but a very modern thing. DHL Express's Scott Elliott on its zero emissions journey. I've been lucky to have quite a few conversations with DHL, with their various divisions, and Scott Elliott is an extremely highly intelligent and skilled person. We're very lucky to get to speak to him. And, a logistics partner like DHL is used to operating extremely complex chains at high degrees of efficiency. And they also have customers who operate. And so what they're actually doing is engaging with customers to help them do it at the same time, because it reflects on their own circular economy. And on their own emissions reduction goals. So they are an influencer. They can have a huge effect in what they do, and also what they help people to do.
Yeah, I was just thinking about DHL, which I'm sure I've used a lot in my life. And I know DHL has some CO2 emission reduction strategies to implement over the next decade. But do you think this is greenwashing, or is it a genuine commitment? And how can we tell?
Well, there's two things. Number one, there's three things. Number one is that they show the data, and you can't really fake it. So that's one. They put it very clearly up and forward. The second thing is people sniff out greenwashing. And the third thing is, why would they greenwash? It's a question of logic, and if it's easier for them just to, they are not tied to a fuel source. They're not tied to, if you're an energy company, you need to produce energy, you're going to have to find a way to do that. They can choose between vendors. They can somewhat dictate it. So there's no reason to think that it's not a genuine commitment, but especially if they're going to put the data out there front and center. They also know that they're visible, and DHL, they are the gold standard of logistics in a way. When you need legal documents sent to different countries, you use DHL basically. When you need to move a Formula One team, you use DHL. And the reason is that they are that standard. So it's a brand protection thing as well. Why would you not go all the way into it and actually fix it so that the people who use you, they're going to have to analyze their own carbon footprint. And if you, as DHL, are part of their carbon footprint, you want to be contributing to reducing theirs. So there's my theory is, when reasons compound for things, those things tend to be true. When reasons compound for decisions, those decisions are probably the ones you should take.
Yeah, I'd like to see a lot more. Yes, it does. I'd like to see a lot more businesses following DHL.
Yes, I think that is actually what we are going to see now. Now, for our third news story, we are instead going to go into a wonderful taping. Lisa Ekstrand is the Chief Sustainability Officer of Vestas Wind Systems, the original, the first, and the forever influential pioneering wind turbine company from Denmark. Here is my discussion with her.
Tell me about Vestas. Tell me what you guys do and take it from the very high level down to the detail.
Sure. So Vestas has been around for more than 4 decades. Vestas pioneered wind. So we were the first wind turbine manufacturer. And since then we've been installing more than 100 gigawatts of wind all around the world. We are today almost 30,000 employees working in all the big regions of the world, and our scope is to manufacture and install wind turbines. So we do not necessarily own the wind assets. That's our customers, which are the big energy utilities of the world in many cases. So our scope is manufacturing and installation of wind turbines, and then of course also service the wind farms throughout their lifetime.
Awesome. So what do the next kind of 12 to 18 months look like for you? What's on the horizon very clearly?
Within the area of sustainability, I mean, yes. For us, it is very much execution on the sustainability strategy that we laid out back in 2020. We set some pretty ambitious commitments and targets, both within the carbon reduction area, but also within circularity. And we have broken that down into very specific projects to make sure that we work very operationalized on the initiatives that it's necessary to ensure that we meet our commitments. So it is very much execution on those and make sure that we step by step deliver on our carbon reduction commitments as well as circularity.
Awesome. What do you think is going to happen? Do you think over the next 5 to 10 years, with all the various pressures that are going in, let's just talk first about Europe. Do you think the adoption of renewable energy technologies is going to accelerate fast enough? And if not, or if yes, does this need to be supported by technological advances? What do you think sort of needs to happen?
I am not worried about the technology. We see. I mean, if we look back, the wind turbine technology has made a fantastic journey, and we're definitely on a good path. I'm not worried about the demand for energy. I mean, in particularly not in these days. I mean, there will be huge demand for energy, and particularly renewable energy. What I'm mostly worried about is permitting processes, that it takes a bit too long to actually get wind projects permitted. So that is a bottleneck that we need to ease up. But also generally also grid infrastructure and energy market regulation to make sure that we have also energy markets that are more fit for renewables. So it's more in those areas where we see bottlenecks and that really needs to speed up.
Fantastic. That Lisa Ekstrand, our number one woman in sustainability from our top 100 list this year. Now, in other news, we just had an event. We had a very special event, Procurement and Supply Chain Live, that was April 27th to 28th at Tobacco Dock in London. And it was a phenomenal 2 days. But remember, we have Sustainability Expo on September 7th to 8th. More on that later. We're going to go for a quick break now before we have our special guest join us live. Don't forget to post your questions in the comment for later and give a shout out from which country you're tuning in from. We'll see you in a moment.
As one of the world's largest investment managers, our mission is to invest responsibly to enable economic prosperity and social progress. My name is Philip Bernades. I'm Vice President and Head of Asset Stewardship Reporting at State Street Global Advisors. Our Asset Stewardship program is designed to have an impact. As long-term shareholders, we actively use our voice and vote to drive positive change in our portfolio companies on material ESG issues and promote long-term value for clients. Through engagement and voting, we have seen our portfolio companies responding to our call to action by, for example, enhancing their board gender diversity or sustainability disclosures and practices. In particular, on climate change, we expect all portfolio companies to offer public disclosures in accordance with the 4 pillars of the TCFD framework. Starting in the 2022 proxy season, we're taking voting action against companies in our main indices that fail to provide disclosures in accordance with the TCFD, including board oversight of climate-related risks and opportunities, total Scope 1 and 2 greenhouse gas emissions, and targets for reducing these emissions. Now, on the issue of board diversity, while boards have become more gender diverse, it is clear that work is not yet complete. Therefore, from 2022 proxy season, we have expanded our campaign on gender diversity, and we now expect all our portfolio companies across the globe to have at least one woman on the board. In previous years, this policy was only applied to major indices in select markets. In 2022, we're also taking voting action against responsible directors in the S&P 500 and FTSE 100 constituents that do not disclose the racial and ethnic diversity of their boards and do not have at least one board director from an underrepresented community. Our main suite of priorities for 2022 are to support our portfolio companies accelerate their transition to a low-carbon future, as well as their transition towards more diverse boards and workforces.
That's incredible board diversity.
Yeah, I actually had an interview with Philip Bernardis as well. It was very interesting. I mean, that's a hugely influential financial firm. And yeah, they're already having a massive impact, and they've been doing it for quite a few years, actually. They famously put the standing girl in front of the bull in Wall Street.
Yes.
Yeah. Welcome back from the break. It is time for our live guest. Toril Big will be joining us now for a quick chat. Toril, have we got you there?
Yes, hello. Hello, Blaise.
How are you doing?
Very well. Thank you very much.
Well, I will, obviously I know your name, title and company, but I will let you introduce yourself first. Can you tell us who you are and tell us about tunneling engineering and about your own career to date?
Brilliant. Yes, of course. So I am Toril Big and I work for tunneling engineering. You're quite right. My title is doctor because I have a PhD. My PhD is in industrial and manufacturing science. It's specifically in chemical engineering, where I was using recycled material to remediate contaminated water. So it was very much around the idea of environmental protection. So it forms part of who I am and what I do and what I bring to tunneling engineering. So tunneling engineering are an engineering team. We produce carbon reduction strategies for businesses of all kinds who want to reduce their carbon emissions. We are a very diverse team. We come from a lot of different disciplines, and by coming from lots of different disciplines, we bring a broad range of skills to decarbonisation.
Amazing. So can you give me a sense of the history of tunneling engineering? And then I know that what you offer is decarbonisation. How do you pitch that to clients, and can you take me through that journey a bit?
Yes. So tunneling engineering started very much as an engineering solutions company, and we were beginning to be asked by businesses for carbon reduction solutions. So I was brought in to head up the team of carbon reduction engineers to deliver those solutions to businesses. So it was very much a pull from businesses wanting to decarbonise that led to us offering that as a service.
Helen, I know that you had some questions for Toril. Why don't I flick to you for a moment?
Sure. So, Dr. Toril, I was thinking, when you approach businesses and give them the information that they need about their business and their carbon reduction strategies, do you see a trend or a pattern of the thing that businesses are least keen to change?
Do you know what's extraordinary is I think at first companies approach
What?
us thinking they need to decarbonize to tick a particular box that they maybe feel they need for their
Yes.
reputation, for their marketing. And while we complete an assessment with them and we produce a carbon reduction strategy with them, what we are seeing is a big take up of a real desire to make a real change. So, for example, companies that may have been reluctant to reduce business travel or reluctant to reduce business travel in first class for the executives are understanding the carbon impacts of those choices. And once they understand, then they're willing to make those changes. We were very pleased to deliver a carbon reduction strategy to an enormous company that's international, and they were immediately willing to reduce their carbon emissions from the way in which they freighted their goods. And it was very quick, the take up, once they recognized the carbon emissions, the footprint, and where in their carbon footprint the different emissions are made. Once they recognized how they could make a change, they actually were very willing to take it up and make a real difference to their carbon emissions.
But Toril, the executives still got to 5 first class, right?
Well, no. One of the main things we do recommend is this reduction in travel. So, for example, meetings like we're having now, virtual meetings, obviously are much lower in carbon emissions than the physical travel, and people are recognizing not only the desirability in reducing their carbon emissions, being seen to reduce their carbon emissions, but they actually understand the size of the carbon emissions and how much of a difference it really makes.
Good. So as long as there's room in there for at least one good ticket, I think you haven't quite killed my dream yet. No, I'm curious that when you have these conversations, especially with very large companies that have many different divisions and operate in so many different territories, what are the takeaways that you think apply to all of them?
I think it's that a large number of small changes can have an extraordinary impact. So all of us can make very small changes to the way we do things. So anything from switching off your monitor when you're away from your workstation, it'll have a very small change for you, but 10,000 people across a company, it's 10,000 1 minutes worth of the monitor being switched off, 10,000 minutes of electricity being saved. So there's an extraordinary impact from a large number of very small actions, and everybody can complete those actions without any great uncomfortableness to themselves. So there's no great loss to you if you get into the habit of using less electricity.
And Helen, I'll flick to you for one more question here.
Sure. I think you mentioned, Dr. Toril, you mentioned that some of your earlier work was in water pollution.
Yes.
Could you tell us a bit more what's going on in the world of water pollution and how to address that right now? And do you do any work in that space?
We are doing some work in that space. So the water companies are obviously very closely related to the environment, and they are very keen to have low carbon emissions. And we are working with processes for water treatment that are lower carbon than the alternative, the original alternative. There are lots of ways of treating water to a standard acceptable for either potable water for drinking or for recycling to the environment, which actually produce less carbon but give you the same compliance in your water standard. So it's perfectly achievable, and your customer will receive the same standard of water, and you as a company will be putting out a high quality product while you're at it. So it's win-win.
Dr. Toril, just before we let you go back to your very important work, is there anything you'd like to add?
Absolutely. I think anyone voting in your poll, diversity is definitely the key. Bringing lots of different skills to sustainability will definitely add. And to answer Helen's question earlier about technology, I think we should use more of it, as overall it will reduce our carbon footprint, as conversations like this one will replace journeys that will use fossil fuels. Yeah. So I just wanted to have my vote and my say on those two subjects.
Well, I believe that the votes are coming in right now, and we're probably going to have the results for you very shortly. But first, Dr. Torrell-Bigg, it's been a pleasure to have you. Thanks so much for taking the time, and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you very much. It's been lovely to meet you both.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Let's have a quick duck into the comments here before we move on. We have hellos from London, from New Delhi. And a comment here from Dane Wadsworth Thurman, MSc Hons Chemistry. Carbon context is absolutely vital for uptake. And Asim Shah in London, pandemic helped accelerated adoption of virtual or hybrid meetings. That's definitely true.
Yeah.
We accelerated into what was the world of the future, and we're still, people are still wrestling with it. But certainly this is the way to go. And I think behaviors as well, the energy crisis as well, the fact that that's happening means people are even more conscious of, hey, turn things off when you leave the room. It does make a big difference. And thanks to all of you for going into the comments. A reminder, we have coming up Sustainability Expo at the Business Design Centre in London and online, September 7th to 8th. If you missed Sustainability Live, don't worry. Here's a look into an action-packed 2 days.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to day one of Sustainability Live.
How awesome is it to be together under one building?
61% of the world's population don't have access to waste management infrastructure or recycling infrastructure.
We've got the tools now to avoid the worst climate change scenarios.
ESG for me is not about creating fancy reports and spending all my time on doing that. It's about taking action and doing something.
It's great. It's a great event, very professionally done, and it's wonderful to be able to network with leaders from around the world.
It's a very cool venue, and it's just behind our office, so that makes it perfect.
Oh, it's superb. I mean, I hadn't expected the volume of people that we've seen today, so it's great to be back physically meeting people.
We've had some really interesting discussions and heated conversations this morning that's evolving the way we think.
Those were an incredible, fantastic 2 days. And if you want to attend the Sustainability Live Expo, head over to our website, sustainability-live.com, grab yourself a ticket. And we've been given intel from the events team that they are selling extremely fast. If you don't want to miss out, grab yourself one now. However, we have to take a pause because now is the time for the results of our poll. They've come in. And the question was, can outsiders transition well into sustainability roles? The answers being no, you need sustainability experience, and yes, diverse experience is better. Well, the votes are in, and 86% of you said yes, diverse experience is better. Just 14% said no, you need to have sustainability experience. I didn't expect it to be that hard of a break, if I'm honest. I thought it might be a little bit closer, but I think it's very revealing. I thought maybe the sustainability contingent would say, hang on, we devoted our time to this. We're the call, but it's interesting, and this is the collaborative atmosphere around sustainability. It's no, we need everybody in. It's a big tent. It's a big tent atmosphere. How's your reaction, Helen?
I was not so surprised. I think I definitely thought that we say diversity is key, diversity of thinking, and that just makes sense for that to be in the sustainability role. Yeah. Well, I think we can have a further discussion, but first we have a graphic because it's time for Ask Blaise. And here we are again. I think we have time for a couple of questions. Helen, do you want to go ahead? Yeah, so Do you think there's anything missing from ESG, environment, social governance, or does it really cover everything that we need to support and enhance?
I'll try to keep these relatively brief, but basically, they're pretty big terms already. I think the issue is understanding exactly where whatever you're bringing up, where it fits in. I think they pretty much cover everything. I think it's making sure that we are then able to delineate down, and therefore you can actually tackle the tasks. I think that's the key, is understanding immediately where something fits so that you can deal with it.
Sure. And my second question, you mentioned earlier that there has been a sustainability boom. There are so many jobs who want chief sustainability officers and more. But do you think there will be a crash?
Well, there's no, the fact that there's a boom right now because they need to go out, get people, hire people. Inevitably, they're going to overhire. There will be a correction for that, and it will adjust down. But that will only happen when the skills proliferate. And right now, then there's not enough people with that skill set. So I don't anticipate that happening for a while, especially because everybody's going to have some degree of credibility within sustainability and within ESG frameworks, because you're not going to be able to get funding. There's a lot you're going to need to deal with it in order to do a good job. And I think we will eventually hit a point of saturation, but I just don't see that happening for some time.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
I was thinking even in a... Sorry, go on.
No, go ahead. You give me your final one.
I was thinking even in a perfect world, if we do reach net zero across the planet by 2050, I thought, well, what happens to all the sustainability roles then? Will they have fulfilled their job? They can just go and do something else now? Or do you think we'll need more chief sustainability officers? And as technology evolves and we find more efficient ways for doing things, will there always be a chief sustainability role?
No doubt. They will be working very hard to convince us that you do need it. I think that there will be, to a degree, there'll always be it, because we've learned the lessons of not having it. So it's a question of future risk prevention. The world will change, new threats will emerge. It'll be about getting ahead of those. It'll be about, we don't know what the next evolution in working is going to be, in the cultural, the work culture issues that's going to bring up, because we don't know yet. So, we live in a distraction world that did not exist 20 years ago. And so, you can't, you have to be careful about what demands you actually make on people. For example, within an office, and we couldn't have known that, until 5 years ago at the earliest. So, the world will keep evolving, but I think I'd like to think, as long as it's continuous, we won't forget that we're going to need something like that.
Excellent.
Anyway, Helen, it's been wonderful to have you on, and I look forward to having you here more. I'm sure that the audience will be seeing more of you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think we've got our delay on, but anyway, that's all we've got time for this episode. We hope you've enjoyed the show, and make sure you tune in again in 2 weeks' time. Thank you for interacting with us if watching live, and for taking part in the poll, as many of you did. And remember, this show is available to watch on demand, so please do share it with colleagues and anyone interested in sustainability. Thanks to Kieran, Catherine, Jack for his first show with us, and the rest of the video production team. This has been a BizClik Media Group production. We'll see you next time.